And we're live.
Hello, we are a group that consists of Samantha Elam, Donna Paris, Josh Carmen, Cole Hagan, and David DeLozier. Cole and David are together currently because one of them is having technical difficulties, and this worked out for the best. So just an FYI. Okay, so this presentation is all about workplace bullying. The first question, which is mine, is what are the 4 traits of emotional intelligence? The 4 traits are self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, social skills/relationship management. Self-awareness is the ability to understand your emotions as well as recognize their impact on relation. This is where you understand the way you feel and what it is that is making you feel. If you are able to understand your emotions, then you will begin impacting other people on your team. Social awareness is the ability to identify emotions in other people and to understand their perspective. The ability to treat people according to these emotional reactions is vital. This is also where a leader can understand the emotions of the team members around them and to get a good comprehension of their emotions. Self-management is the ability to control your emotions and use your awareness of them to stay flexible. Other aspects of this is to nurture and apply consciousness, trustworthiness, leading, adapting to change, and complete drive to succeed, as well as the initiative to think fast and act creatively and innovatively to solve problems. Social skills/relationship management is the ability to use the awareness of your emotions together with understanding of others. Leaders with good social skills are usually good communicators. They are also good with conflict resolution and communicating the vision to team members by enlightening them and creating motivation and inspiration throughout the team. Now we'll go on to question 2.
How does emotional workplace bullying rate in emotional intelligence? Workplace bullies demonstrates a serious lack of social and emotional intelligence. They lack the skills of self-management, stress management, and empathy. Do severe damage to individuals they bully and to the companies for which they work. The problem is widespread. According to a survey conducted in 2007, Zoe International, almost half of U.S. workers report that they have been subject to workplace bullying or have been witnessed it. Bullying behavior can take many forms: belittling people, public humiliation, insult, threats, verbal abuse, sabotage, aggressive behavior, screaming, yelling, and other forms of rage, and harsh, unfair, repetitive actions. The results on individuals are many targets, such as bullying can cause stress, anxiety, feelings of powerless, depression, physical illness, lost my page, depression, physical illness, high blood pressure, severe headaches, and stomach ache, and sometimes worse. 51% of bullying are caused by women in the workplace. Women on women concern, and which it calls people, like I said, to skip work due to taking sick days, using sick days, looking for other jobs, basically because they're low self-esteem or being belittled and being hurt on the job in such a way. Now we can go to the third question.
For the third question, how can bullying adversely affect performance in the workplace? Jonas mentioned how victims of bullying can have depression and even sleep disorders, low morale. In fact, psychologist Jeff Garrity mentioned this, that victims have been found to suffer low morale, depression, and removal from the workplace, both psychologically and physically, just not wanting to work for that organization anymore. So this is obviously some areas where bullying can affect the workplace. If employees are not engaged, if they're feeling fearful to interact with one another, that's going to affect the success of the organization. Also, Harrison Psychological Associates reports the cost to employers where bullying takes place within a 2-year period is more than $180 million in lost time or productivity. So again, bullying affects both the individual and the organization. Going on to question 4 now with David.
my question, with all these things that could potentially happen in the workplace, my question focused on the actions that can be taken by individuals or organizations to handle bullying in the workplace. With the video that was attached to our assignment, one of the main actions that individuals can take that experience bullying is to confront the bully, because most of the time they don't expect to be confronted, and that's probably the best way for an individual to handle that. To go into more detail with that, especially if it relates to the work and keeping detailed nature of the bullying, for example, dates, times, places, what was said, what was done, keeping an accurate record of that. Individuals can also obtain copies of harassing or bullying paper trails, like accusations, timesheets, audit reports, stuff like that. Basically, the more information you have to validate your claim that you're being bullied helps in that situation. As far as organizations and employers are concerned, what was said in the video was to support the individual being bullied. And to do a little more research on that, there were different organizations that I looked up, and kind of the consensus for them was create a zero-tolerance anti-bullying policy. This policy should be part of the wider commitment to a safe and healthful working environment, which would also tie into the other questions about being more productive in the workplace. When witnessed or reported, the bullying behavior should be addressed immediately. If bullying is entrenched in the organization, complaints should be taken seriously and investigated promptly. Structure the work environment to incorporate a sense of autonomy and a clarity of task expectations for employees. Ensure management has an active part in the staff and is not separated from their employees. And the last one, encourage open door policies. And now on question 5.
Okay, so what we've read and watched with the workplace bullying, that can be tied into what we read in this week's chapters of our book in this class. And the question I had was, how does Pfeffer's discussion of framing apply to the concept of workplace bullying? Well, according to Pfeffer, when it comes to framing, there are different principles we can use. One of those is called the commitment process, which means a person is tied or bound to a certain behavior. So a person is bound to a certain behavior because they look to what happened in the past, and then they use that in the here and now. Dr. John Gardier mentioned that workplace bullies may have had a past with inappropriate behaviors, so one can conclude that a bully may look to their past inappropriate behavior to guide them. Pfeffer goes on to say that persistence in a trait is seen as something needed to be a strong leader, so a bully may continue being a bully, thinking it makes him or her a strong leader. Also, someone who is consistent does not have to revisit their actions every time, so it's seen as being economic with time and energy. A person can use that extra time and energy for then something else. Moving on along to the second chapter that we had to read for this week regarding interpersonal influence. The strategies described by David to overcome workplace bullying can be connected to the strategies of interpersonal influence. One of the ways that victims can stop being bullied is by confronting that bully, as David mentioned. Dr. Gardier calls it turning the tables on the bullies because they are not expecting to be confronted by their victims. Pfeffer says people are not always influenced by the situation alone, but are also influenced by others in a social setting. Instead of a person relying on their own judgment, they can be influenced by others. This can stop a person from choosing to bully others, but only if intentions are good. Pfeffer says if a person uses other people as a source for information, then the person will end up sharing the same views as the group. As noted in the video, bullies usually never give encouragement to coworkers. To be influential, Pfeffer says a person can show flattery, that is, of course, complimenting someone. Pfeffer goes on and says a person on the receiving end of the flattery will feel better about themselves if he or she feels the flattery was sincere and not based on an ulterior motive. So it is important to be sincere with flattery. And finally, Pfeffer also notes that emotions play a big role in influencing others. So if a victim expresses his or her emotions to a bully, it is likely those emotions will change the bully's behavior. Unfortunately, though, not everyone can be influenced by emotions. And now we'll wrap up this video with an example of real workplace bullying.
Yeah, so for the last question, give an example of a workplace situation experienced by someone on the team and what tactics were used to solve the problem. I worked at an organization in Virginia a couple years ago where I felt like I was bullied and harassed. It was a guy who was not the head coach, but a boss in a certain area of the organization. And I looked up stats on workplacebullying.org, and it said, in fact, 72% of the bullies are bosses. And they quoted that it feels like everyone's walking on eggshells and afraid to confront the situation. That's how I felt with the situation. It was in charge of equipment and travel, and I felt like the guy who was ahead of me was kind of two-faced, where he would act like everything was okay when I was around everybody else on the staff, but when it was just me and this guy, like Jonas mentioned, there was verbal harassment. There was he was angry. He didn't really explain situations to me, and whenever I would mess up, he would react in a way that was not appropriate for the workplace. And this was difficult to go through. It also mentioned from that website, workplacebullying.org, that 40% of the people who are bullied never tell their employees. And I felt like this. I didn't want to complain or to start other issues in the organization because I wanted to keep good health throughout the organization. And so I was one of those people who didn't tell anybody else. But the way that we were able to resolve this issue was the head coach of the organization, not the guy who was bullying me, but the guy who oversaw the whole organization, could tell that there was something going on between me and this guy. And so he brought me in his office and asked me what was going on and told me to explain the situation. I opened up to him about what was going on. And overall, what happened was he brought both of us in the office, and the guy who was bullying me was also bullying other people on staff. And he actually ended up leaving the job. Just one day got up and left. And, Jonathan mentioned and Josh mentioned how, they go back to their past situations and they bring that into here and now, and they feel like bullying gives them power. I felt like he had the right power to lead me, to tell me what to do. But as mentioned in the book, Managing with Power in Politics and Influence in Organizations, I feel like he didn't do a good job of leading me. The quote is, "Leadership involves skill at developing and exercising power and influence." Again, he had the power to tell me what to do, but he didn't give me the leadership to develop me or influence me in a positive way. So the tactics that were used was the boss brought us in. He found out there was other issues going on, and the guy ended up leaving. As mentioned, bullying does, in fact, cause issues for the victims, where there was psychological or, they kind of tap out and they don't want to work anymore, or they're depressed or they have low morale. And I felt like that my work productivity was decreasing. I didn't want to be in the office as much. I didn't work as hard because I was being bullied, and so I wanted to go home. That's what I felt like. But overall, the situation was handled, and the year ended up finishing strong. But bullying is an issue in workplaces, and it's something that we can take with us as we go forward to make sure that no one on staff or no one that we know is being bullied, and we can speak up and help those who are being bullied. And as David mentioned, have an open door policy to make sure that all branches of the organization are healthy, and that will help us lead to success in the future. So that will wrap up our presentation for week 5. Thank you.